The story kicks off inside a dark and filthy dungeon. There, our boy Ryun Sermon is chained to the wall, being tortured for pure sport. His body is so brutally beaten that blood is seeping from almost every pore. The guy behind this bloodbath is Lord Sparten, the monster who destroyed his powerful family. The reason he ended up in this nightmare is simple. Everyone in the Sermon family inherited great power, but the youngest prince inherited absolutely nothing from his parents. When Sand curses the stubborn cockroach that refuses to die, our prince tries to tell him to end his suffering, but the white-haired scumbag replies that he doesn't understand a word. The dude literally ripped out Ryun's tongue a long time ago. After that, the Lord finally gets tired of playing around on the third anniversary of the Sermon family's destruction and heads out of the dungeon without a care. Now alone, our prince still can't believe that 3 years have passed since that day. You see, his family was the vanguard of humanity, stationed on the border of the Black Zone, the mysterious place that endlessly spawns monsters. Because of this honorable duty, the Sermon family was the strongest of the 5 noble families on the entire continent. One day, however, Ryun's father and older brother suddenly vanished without a trace. Nobody knows what happened to them, and that moment marked the beginning of their downfall. Lord Sparten saw this as the perfect opportunity to destroy them. He used every dirty trick he could find to drag the family into ruin during the chaos. His real goal was the Sermon family's dragon blood, a special blessing granted only to the true descendants. It makes them so powerful that they can become 7th level archmages in childhood and sword masters by just 15. However, the curse of the ancient demon lord strips away this blessing. It only affects one child every few centuries. And unfortunately, our boy was the unlucky one who got cursed. That's why he never could learn how to use a sword or cast magic. Sitting there alone, he cries over the powerlessness that allowed the Sparten family to destroy his home so easily. To make matters worse, the Psycho Lord tortured and experimented on him for 3 long years after wrecking his life. Even so, he's so tired he can't even feel anger. He feels death approaching, so he quietly closes his eyes to finally rest in peace. However, the world clearly has other plans for him. Our boy wakes up again and is stunned to see a familiar face calling him young master. He's seriously confused about how his maid and caretaker Colin is standing right in front of him. As things start to click, he urgently orders her to bring him a mirror. He's stunned again as he stares at his younger reflection. Then he asks her what year it is. And when she confirms the year, Ryun feels the ground disappear from under his feet as he realizes he's somehow gone back to when he was 12 years old. You see, this isn't just any random time in his life. This is the year everything started to fall apart and the Sparten family began to make their move. When he remembers the Golden Lord's last words about granting his wish, everything becomes clear. At that moment, a dignified man who heard about him fainting enters the room, and Colin immediately bows before him. Ryun quickly recognizes him as Alejandro, the revered knight commander of his family. The commander says he will allow the prince to rest due to his frailty. Colin chimes in, saying she had already warned them this would happen. However, our boy surprises them both when he calmly says that he's actually in top shape. He immediately asks what they'll be doing in training today. Alejandro can't believe he's turning down an excuse to skip training and reveals that today's lesson is focused on footwork. Confused, he wonders out loud if this is really the youngest prince. Our boy grabs his training sword and states with a confident smirk that there's no doubt that he is Ryun Sermon himself. With the experience and power he gained during his brutal time in Edan, he's totally ready to face whatever is thrown his way, because this is his only chance to fix everything and settle the score with that pale parasite Sparten. Our hero checks his stats. He's relieved to see his skills aren't completely worthless. He even spots his S-rank double curse hiding in there. Just then, Alejandro rolls in and says, "Everything's ready." So Ryan closes his status screen and heads out with him. They get to the arena, where some goblin is chained up, in the center, screaming its head off like some psycho gremlin. The monster lunges at Ryan, but the chains yank it right back. The tension ramps up, and Colin begs the Knight Commander to stop this insanity, since the young master's condition is so not ideal. Harry gets that she's doing this for him, since yesterday he couldn't even stand to be near monsters. He focuses and tells himself that he's finally figured it out and knows what he has to do. The system keeps spamming warnings that Arkan's curse is flaring up again. The same curse that turns monsters into his own personal nightmares. Glancing at the status screen, he finally gets what the curse is really all about. He steels himself with a deep breath. Alexandro tells him he can call it a day, but Ryun says he's nowhere near done and steps up. The goblin lunges the second he moves, and its attack catches him completely off guard. He stumbles back out of sheer terror before forcing himself to stop. He chews himself, out telling himself it's just some stinking goblin and there's no reason to be scared. He cracks a smirk and thinks this goblin is nothing compared to the pressure that one lord in Edeon threw down. That dude's presence alone froze him solid like he was a total nobody. Compared to that, this weak little thing is barely a warm up. He raises his sword and slams it down on the goblin's head with a sick, satisfying thud. The Knight Commander and Colin just freeze their jaws on the floor. The system pings him again that he's overcome the curse and weakened its power. He stares at the cracked sword in his hands and the terrified goblin on the floor. The next message pops up, telling him he no longer feels fear from monsters. He just stands there for a second, thinking before turning around to Alejandro and orders him to bring a real sword. The Knight Commander hesitates, while Colin looks like he's about to faint, giving the old man a confident smirk. And something about him makes the veteran knight blush, realizing the young master has finally become a total alpha. The goblin starts shaking. The second Ryan looks at it again, like it already knows its time is up. Ryan delivers a ruthless strike and ends the poor creature's suffering with one clean hit. Alejandro tells Colin to watch closely because they're witnessing the rise of the next head of House Sermon. Ryan dips after the fight and splashes some cold water on his face to cool off. He stares at his reflection, relieved that the status screen and the system helped him shatter part of the curse. He slams his hands on the sink hyped because this means he has room to grow and some real potential, just waiting to be unlocked. His mood sours though because he's not happy with the EXP he got. If things keep going like this, he'll need to kill like 1,000,000 goblins just to level up properly. He tells himself he needs to get stronger and fast before that dreaded day comes for House Sermon. At least he's confirmed the curse isn't absolute and can be shattered. Looking at the system, he tells himself, there's no way he can waste this chance. Diving into some lore, the current state of House Sermon is that his dad and brothers have been missing for over 2 years. Even though he's weakened, he still holds a major position in the house, so their enemies haven't made a move yet. Suddenly he pumps his fist in the air, stoked that he's finally found a way to grind his level. He decides it's time to test the second method. The scene cuts to a beautiful lady in red wearing a mask walking through the door. They sit down for some tea and start talking. She says she heard about the monster hunt and smirks at him before asking if he called her for magic training. This lady is Seinon, the head of House Sermon's magic division. Just like the Knight Commander, she's a 7th level mage with some insane skills. Nobody knows much about her skills or her life except for the family head himself. She puts her cup down and gets serious, warning him not to let one little goblin hunt go to his head, since magic is a whole different world. She explains she never trained him before because she judged he had no magical talent. Ron smirks, since he already knew that. The curse never even let him feel mana, let alone control it. However, everything changed yesterday, and he replies confidently that he can feel it now, a revelation that leaves her visibly shocked. Putting her tea aside, Sena creates the image of a dragon of imposing fire. Then she lets him slowly open his eyes to check if he can really see mana. She says he should be able to recognize the shape she just drew in the air with her magic. She's left completely speechless when he answers instantly without hesitation. It makes no sense to her. How did he suddenly awaken the ability to feel magic in just one night? The fact that he can see her drawings means his knowledge of mana is somehow equal to or even greater than hers. She starts pacing back and forth worried, wondering how the little kid managed to progress so fast and so incredibly. Then Ron reveals to her that his ability to see magic is pretty much useless. He can see mana clearly, but he can't use the Sermon family's magic development techniques. So he wants her to help him overcome this barrier. She's surprised he wants her help since he can't even store magic in his body. For this to work, Sena will have to force her own magical power directly into him. She warns him that she could kill him at any moment during the process. But our prince tells her he's already so weak she could take him down with a single blow, so it's no big deal. The real reason, though, is that she's the only person he trusts with his entire life. In the previous timeline, Sena stayed by his side until the end, and even protected him with her body long after her magic had run out. He asked for her help one more time, saying there's no one else he'd trust with his life. Later, Sena starts with blue magic, the secret technique passed down through generations in the Sermon family. She thinks it's still too soon for him, but our boy has plenty of experience using it in Edeon. When she's ready, she tells him to focus as hard as he can because he's about to enter a world of pain. She warns him there's no point in screaming or crying after it starts. The only way to stop the technique is to think about stopping with all his might. Hearing her talk about intense pain, he has sudden flashbacks of all the crazy stuff Sans did to him before. After that, Nothing else in the world can scare him. So he calmly reminds Sena that he trusts her with everything he's got and that she should stop holding back. Hearing this, she finally unleashes her magical power directly into him, and the Curse of Arcan activates instantly. Mana flows out of his body as fast as it comes in. Even so, he handles it like a pro, controlling every particle of energy during the short time it remains inside him. The curse forces the magic to explode, but he focuses that explosive power into a single point, creating an opening to bypass the curse. Sena can't believe her eyes, as none of the energy she's infusing is leaking out. Ron keeps pushing forward, even while feeling like every organ in his body is about to rupture, but he doesn't hesitate. Considering all the near-fatal fights he survived in Edeon, that hellish dimension, he became the strongest human mage alive. Even after the timeline shift, every technique he mastered, there is still perfectly engraved in his memory. Suddenly, he absorbs all the concentrated energy into his body, and Sena immediately stops flooding him with mana. Ron collapses to the floor and curls up from the unbearable pain. But this pain is nothing compared to what he's endured before. All the torture and experiments that Sansa's doctors performed on him for research were way worse. On one of those nights, he saw a black-robed figure storm the basement and attack the doctors. The masked man dragged him out of the basement, even though he was seriously injured. When Ron woke up later, he found out it was actually Alexandro who had rescued him. The commander apologized for not saving him before the monsters in white coats caused so much damage. Even so, Ron was just grateful to see him. Again, after 3 long years apart. Unfortunately, the reunion was cut short when the Sparten family's guards showed up and fired a shower of arrows into the intruder's back. Reliving that tragic nightmare, Ron abruptly wakes up in the present with tears in his eyes. Although relieved that his magic experiment worked, he's also pissed that the nightmare ruined the moment. He pulls himself together and decides he'll use this newfound power to make sure that kind of ending never happens again, even though he's way stronger now. He knows he needs to keep his growth a secret, so the Sparten family doesn't catch on too early. To make sure they don't interfere, he quietly cooks up a new plan. And the first step of that plan is to take down the Sermon family's enemies ahead of schedule, long before the Spartans get a chance to destroy them. Sometime later, Ryun scratches his head and announces that he failed the magic cultivation procedure. Sena and Alejandro freeze since they have no clue what he's talking about. After a brief silence, he decides he can't tell them the whole truth, even after everything they've done for him. Normally, he never hides anything from them, but figures explaining his situation would only make things worse. Flexing his hands, he tells them he tried his best, but he can't feel any trace of mana right now. He tells Sena she can check as many times as she wants. She takes him up on the offer and steps forward without hesitation. The mage activates her magic detection spell and holds his hand as mana flows from hers. She states in shock that such a result is impossible while he flashes a calm smile. Pulling her hands away, she confirms there's not a single trace of mana in his body. Her voice trembles as she says she was sure she felt mana flowing through him the day before. Depressed and frustrated, Sena wipes her tears and leaves as Ryun calls out to her. Yo, you watched the video this far and still haven't subbed to the channel. What's up with that, man? You're slipping for real. Come on, my dude, hit that subscribe button. It'll make me super happy. Yeah, I know. As soon as the door closes, Alejandro turns to him and reminds him that he still needs to focus on his nightly training. Our hero gives a nervous smile and claims he can't do that either. He makes up a lame excuse that he barely ate properly after the last training session, which Sen also confirms. This simple statement makes the Knight Commander's face go pale and he sinks into a deep depression. About 2 months later, Sin barges into Ryun's room and says with tears in her eyes that he didn't come out today either. With the absence of the sibling's father, the lady of the house takes on all the responsibilities and keeps everything running. However, even she is slowly reaching her limit. Sin returns to the kitchen, and the other servants ask if the prince refused to come out again. The butler sighs and says it's been 3 months since the young master last killed that goblin. Now he doesn't even answer Alejandro anymore. Another maid mutters that people often get lost when they try to change too fast, and that having hope for him now is pointless. Sin scolds her and tries to defend the young master, saying he tried his best that day. Her anger fades the moment they casually call him by his old nickname, the Jinx of the Sermon family. In the city, people went even further and started calling him the useless trash of the Sermon family. Hearing this, his loyal maid gets startled and reminds the chatterbox that he's only 12 years old. But the butler tells her that expectations are everything when it comes to a noble. The other maid reveals that almost everyone is quitting one by one. The butler admits he's planning to stop working soon. He then asks Sen what choice she'll make, but she remains silent. The scene changes to Ryun, who is calmly enjoying a rare steak. He notices the quality of the meals is dropping, which tells him that the situation is about to get worse. Instead of panicking, he smirks, thinking that things are going exactly how he wants. He figures that the previous version of himself would have desperately tried to fix everything and eventually wasted away. The new Ryun is different. He plans to lay low and make all his enemies believe he's weak and helpless. Then, as soon as an opening appears, he'll strike without mercy and will destroy them all. He remembers that the Sermon family's downfall began the moment the head of the house disappeared, and the search party never returned. His older brothers vanished under similar circumstances, and the family's funding slowly dried up. The training grounds, which were once bustling with activity, now house only a handful of weak knights. The powerful families that once hoped to form ties with them have also quietly abandoned them. However, Rion isn't too bothered by the situation, since the peace and quiet lets him live his secret life comfortably. Even so, he's still unsatisfied with how slowly the family is declining and wants to speed things up. Just then, Callan bursts into the room, yelling that it's time for training and the knight commander is waiting. His mood instantly sours, and he says he also wants to skip today's training. Callan refuses to take no for an answer and yanks off the covers. She approaches him slowly with unwavering determination. Before scooping him up in her arms, her expression serious. She carries him out of the room and declares that she will never abandon this family. Meanwhile, our hero simply enjoys the ride. Later at the training grounds, Alejandro scolds him for his terrible swordsmanship. He repeats endlessly that handling a sword is a simple task. Rion just sighs, thinking that the old man still hasn't given up on him. He wants to repay that loyalty someday, but he can't let anyone find out he's been training in secret. He even uses a body-altering skill to hide his real physique, though the skill is still weak. In that instant, the system informs him that his stamina has increased and his eyes widen. He immediately makes up an excuse to go to the bathroom and bolts, leaving a confused knight commander behind. Looking at his reflection, he confirms that the skill fails the moment he moves too fast. Rion opens his status window and grins. Seeing that his secret training is finally paying off, he figures he'll soon reach level 20 and plans to use the attributes to unlock the Phantom class, just like he did in the Gulag, while also enhancing his other classes. Just then, he notices Alejandro talking to someone and wonders if a surprise visitor has arrived. He recognizes the man as Truno, the general manager of the Sermon family, who apologizes for bothering him. Truno hands him a scroll, which makes Ryun suspect the situation is a little different this time. However, the events haven't changed. Alejandro has already figured out what's happening, while our hero reads the letter. It states that the second prince of the Darren kingdom, Kyle, has invited him to the prince's birthday party. The young master smirks, satisfied that the final piece of his plan has fallen into place. Soon our prince is on his way to the Darren family's birthday party, still half asleep. The night before, Kaelin had way too much fun playing dress-up with him to make him look as stylish as possible. She desperately tried to come along, but she and his other servants couldn't accompany him. Unfortunately, the knight commander was sent to handle the sudden attack on the border. The monster attack was completely unexpected. Meanwhile, Sena had to leave in a hurry because her mother ordered her to return home immediately. In the end, this leaves a 12-year-old head of the family with compromised social skills, going alone to represent the entire Sermon family. Truno assures him that he shouldn't worry too much, since the Darren family isn't foolish enough to pull anything. But Ryan believes that kind of security only applies to the old Sermon family. Normally, the family would just send a servant to attend these frivolous events. Now, in their current state, our young master has no choice but to show up at a birthday party as the official head of the house. He doesn't mind, though, since he still feels responsible for the rapid collapse. A few hours later, his carriage stops in front of the Darren's estate. There, he finds Kyle Darren himself, and a group of maids waiting to welcome him. Truno expresses gratitude for the warm welcome in Ryan's place. However, our boy clearly feels the countless stares aimed at him as he walks through the reception. He overhears all sorts of rumors and weird theories about the family's downfall, and the Sermon family's screw-ups. Our prince just smirks at them since he'd planned this whole thing from the start. He digs himself an even deeper hole when he greets the nobles with a lame hello, showing zero class or respect. This ballsy power move makes everyone within a 5-foot radius facepalm in disappointment. Later in the dining hall, one of his escorts is shocked that the young prince hasn't left his room in 5 whole days. The whole point of showing up a week early was to network, but the captain of the escort team tells him not to get his hopes up. He points out the total train wreck Ryan caused during the reception. He can't believe the kid is just holed up in his room, because the fancy food out there is to die for. There's everything a guy could ever want, including hot noble ladies. Just then, a guy walks in and tells the captain to get his men ready, because the young master is going to attend the banquet after all. The two of them celebrate relieved they won't miss out on the banquet's goodies. The guy also tells them to cook up a perfect report, making sure to cover up any of the prince's screw-ups. As for Ryun, he's been quietly training in his room this whole time, waiting patiently for the perfect moment. Even though he used the banquet to bribe his escorts into fudging his report, his real plan lies somewhere else. After all, the banquet is on the exact day the bane of his existence shows up at the Darwin mansion. All the ladies who were chatting away totally shut up the second Lord S walks in. Literally everyone around him tries to avoid eye contact. Truno also tries to avoid his gaze, but San strolls right up to him without a second thought. Left with no choice, Truno starts sucking up to the guy, saying it's a huge honor to meet him in person. But S cuts right to the chase. He says straight up that he heard the mighty Sermon Ryun also showed up and that he'd like to meet him. Truno plays dumb acting like he has no clue what he's talking about. So Sans doesn't miss a beat explaining it's about the Sermon family's biggest mistake, someone who'll lead them to ruin. Truno is totally shook. He knows Sans is under a ton of pressure for being the family's most gifted mage, but he never thought the guy would actually talk trash about the head of the Sermon family in the Darwin's own territory, which is right under their authority. However, Sans quickly pulls a 180, claiming that rumor has to be fake. In fact, he says he came to shut down the stupid rumor that's trashing the Great Master's name. But Truno isn't buying any of it, since it's coming from the biggest scumbag on the whole continent. Word is, Sans started drinking at age 7, and even offed one of his own subjects. Right then, our boy makes his grand entrance with his crew. Sans is stoked, while Truno is about to have a meltdown, wondering why the young master had to show up at the worst possible time. Ryun's aura is so bright it makes everyone second guess their opinions about him. Seeing him now, they almost take back everything they assumed before. But Sans is seething with jealousy, because our boy instantly upstages him, just because of his family's rep. He walks up to Sans and says he's heard a lot about him from the fourth prince, his brother Lars. Hearing this, Sans shoots back, with a smug smile that he's heard a lot about him too. But before he can spill any tea, our prince calmly says that Sans is a truly kind person. He brings up his time with the famous Sans at their academy, and how he had to drop out after a few months because of his overwhelming popularity. Rayon exposes the horrible things Sans did and masterfully flips the script. He talks about how Sans once saved some poor kid from a bully, and even helped a girl who was being harassed by some shameless creep. Sans is seething inside, but our boy hasn't delivered the final blow yet. When he casually brings up something about his knee, Truno jumps in to cool things down. He pretends that Sans helped Lars by bringing him medicine for his busted knee. Then he quickly drags the prince away before things blow up. Meanwhile, our boy is feeling pretty good after totally owning that white-haired jerk. Sans takes his bold, mocking insults as a clear declaration of war. However, pissing the guy off is just the second step in his unfolding plan. Back in his room, Sans totally loses his cool and smashes a flower vase on the floor. His rage explodes as he screams, insult after insult at our hero. Thinking back on their talk, he realizes Elle must have found out that he didn't just leave the academy, but was actually expelled. Grabbing his head, he curses under his breath, lamenting that all the effort to keep the incident under wraps was for nothing. He remembers the talk about getting on his knees and tells himself that the truth behind that specific incident can never get out. A flashback hits him where he's struggling to keep a confident look on his face while he can barely breathe. Lightning magic dances around Lars, who tells the noble he's really messed up. Big time. This time, Sans tries to make excuses, saying he didn't know the girl was his partner, and that he was just trying to say hi to the commoner. Ryun's older brother isn't having any of it and reminds him that first and foremost, everyone at the academy is a student. He orders Sans to get on his knees now. Lars warns him that if he doesn't apologize from the bottom of his heart, the entire Sparten family will be wiped out and he'll take him out. Himself, Sans drops to his knees completely humiliated, as Lars keeps his lightning pointed right at him. Snapping back to reality, he lets out another frustrated scream and tells himself he needs to go through with his plans. He swears he'll silence Lars's younger brother no matter what it takes. After a moment, he forces himself to calm down and reassures himself that he'll get his revenge on Ryun eventually. A knock on the door snaps him out of it, and he tells them to enter. A figure walks into the room, which makes Sans raise an amused eyebrow, since he never expected a visitor like this. The person is revealed to be none other than Truno Hilda. Time skips to after the prince's party. As our hero heads home in his carriage, he thinks about how he hit all his goals for the event and made a great impression on the nobles. He's even happier that he managed to get a rise out of Sans, who fell for the trap in record time. Truno then speaks up and says he totally killed it at the banquet, and that it really made him feel like there's still hope for House Sermon. Ryun shuts him down immediately, saying he didn't make any real connections and even pissed off House Sparten. The general manager corrects himself quickly and says that the way he shut down Sans was actually flawless. Our hero laughs and presses a button in the middle of the carriage. Truno looks confused and asks what's going on. The man nervously asks the young master why he activated the soundproofing spell. Ryun calls him out, saying that if he really believed there was hope, he never would have chosen to betray the house. Truno starts to sweat and stammers, asking what the young master means by that. Our boy tells him his crime is unforgivable, but he's willing to let it slide since he did it for House Sermon. The general manager looks down and quietly asks how Ryun found out. Our hero replies that he needs to make a choice right now, and that the man can judge himself the same way he always has in the past. As the carriage keeps speeding along, Ryun reveals the secret plan he's been hiding. The idea is so shocking to the manager that he just stares at the kid, completely floored, wondering how someone like him could have come up with something like that. The manager then covers his face with his hands and breaks down crying, saying he wants to shout with pride at the top of his lungs right that second. Ryun seems satisfied with the man's choice. He says they've already passed the capital. Truno looks at him again and wonders how this kid can keep his cool knowing exactly what's about to go down. Suddenly he realizes that's not a smile on the young master's face, but a fierce, killing intent. In that instant, the carriage screeches to a halt, and the escort knight orders the driver to keep moving. He spots the driver, slumped over dead, and barely manages to dodge an arrow flying right at his face. One of the knights screams that it's an ambush and orders everyone to protect the carriage. He warns the group that the attackers are firing poisoned magic arrows, and the mages immediately throw up a protective shield. The captain of the knights takes charge, control dodging the arrows and demanding the cowards show themselves. Another knight realizes something's off and yells at the captain. The guy warns him not to get too close to the carriage, even though he's an ally. The knight then tells him the carriage is empty, leaving everyone confused. Ryun's been kidnapped by someone, and now this guy is taking him somewhere on horseback. Meanwhile, our hero thinks about how much time has passed. He remembers his past life when he got kidnapped. His family wasted time and money looking for him, which ended up being the reason the Sermon family was ruined. But now, since he knows the future, Ryun is confident he can change it. That's why after coming back to life, our protagonist didn't even try to save his family. By doing that, he knew other noble families would come after him. So, this was his plan to make them think he was a total loser. However, unlike other families, the Sparten family doesn't just kill the strong, so he was sure they'd try to kill him eventually. Luckily, it looks like Sans Sparten, the son of the Sparten family, fell for his trap, which means he's definitely going to pull something on his way back to the capital. And that's why our boy was ready with a plan, along with Truno, who was actually sent by the Sparten family to kidnap him. While he's lying behind Truno on the horse, Ryun orders him to act according to their plan, after which he'll definitely forgive him. At the same time, our protagonist is grinding to raise his levels, which have now hit level 20. After a while, Truno reaches the destination and is about to hand over our boy, who's faking being unconscious, to Sans Sparten. In reality, Truno is the head manager of the Sermon family, who made a deal with the Sparten family to sell the young master to them, even though Ryun caught on to him. Sans still thinks he's on their side since that's the plan. As per the deal, Sans hands over the info Truno requested, Truno, claiming they got it from the Asin family's intelligence network, guaranteeing it's reliable. Seeing that Truno is still suspicious, Sans claims that even though they're also a noble family from the Drya continent, selling information is their main business. He hands the documents to Truno, stating it contains all the info on eyewitnesses to the Sermon family's mission and their direct descendants. Hearing this, Ryun finally gets why Truno sold him out, because he's a loser who can't do anything for his family and status, but his older brothers are capable enough to get back what was lost. So Truno wants to find them. Even though Truno knew the Asin family had this info, it was impossible for him to get it directly. So he used the Sparten family. As he's leaving, Truno also begs Sans to keep his other promise, which is to return the young master safely to the Sermon family. As soon as Truno is gone, Sans and his goons close in on our hero, and one of them asks if he should kill him, but Sans Sparten says there's no need since his family will abandon him soon enough, now that he's the real culprit in their eyes. To carry out the main plan, Sans needs to head back. As the scene moves on, our protagonist wakes up to find himself chained up. Sans Sparten stands before him, mocking his pathetic state as a son of the Sermon family. Even though Ryun knows everything, he plays dumb and asks Sans why he's there. As Sans tells Ryun, he kidnapped him. Our hero threatens him about what's coming next. Since Sans thinks Ryun is a loser, he just laughs at the situation. After that, Sans kicks Ryun in the face, saying his dad and brother are probably already dead. On top of that, Sans mocks our hero, saying Truno sold him out to the Parton family for info on witnesses to his brother's kidnapping so he could find them. But nobody even tried to save Ryun, since he's such a pathetic loser. Then he taunts our boy, saying the war between their families is just getting started and this kidnapping is only the beginning. At that moment, Ryun stares him down and activates the power of the magic circle, which leaves Sans so stunned he can't even speak. Still chained up, Ryun declares he's been waiting for this day ever since he came back to this life. Even though a light green fills the area due to Ryun's magic, but nothing happens. So he attacks our boy again. This time, our protagonist uses the magic circle of silence on him, making Sun unable to speak. Without the ability to cast any spells, his magic fails too. Shocked and terrified, he then hits our protagonist with a fire ray spell that doesn't require chanting. Ryan was kidnapped on the orders of the head of the family, who doesn't want him to die. So Sans is using the second circle magic our hero expected him to use, but Sans is making a mistake. Meanwhile, Sans thinks about attacking our boy's leg because then his father won't say a thing. After sizing San up for a bit, Ryun activates mana interference, which means all of Sans Parton's attacks will be useless. Seeing this, Sans pulls out a dagger, and just as he's about to attack our hero, Aran breaks free from the chains, which is no big deal for him. Then our hero uses paralysis magic and knocks Sans out cold. After a while, Sans wakes up, but now he's the one chained up. Meanwhile, Ryun is sitting in front of him, a dagger in his hand, trying to break free. Sans thinks they're just regular chains with no magic, so he tries to snap them easily. But when he tries, his body gets zapped by a strong electric current, causing intense pain. Walking towards Sans, Ryun says he drew magic circles on his body. This is actually a forbidden technique where the circles are drawn on the flesh and blood activates the magic circle. In his past life, the same thing happened to our boy. First, they used awakening magic, so he couldn't sleep, and then he was forced to endure unbearable pain as scars were carved into his body. Still confused about how Ryan knows this technique, Sans says that as far as he knows, Ryan isn't allowed to use mana. Meanwhile, our protagonist started practicing everything after his rebirth, and thanks to his past life experience, he got a lot of help. After getting the mana pills 3 months ago, Ryun practiced every skill he could. Plus, the secret he learned in Edeon was also useful. Every skill has a circuit and a principle, and mana is injected into each player's unique circuit to activate it. What's more, only players who are masters like him know these circuits even exist. With all this information, he had no trouble mastering the skills in his second life. On top of that, Ryun had already secretly visited this place to memorize its location and layout, making it easy to capture Sans Parton. The magic circle our protagonist is using on Sans is supposed to be the opposite, but now he's going to make Sans experience real pain. After torturing him for a bit, Ryun gets ready to leave, but Sans stops him. Turning around, our hero says he can get away before Sans' family arrives, who are coming in 1 week. Sans is shocked that he knows this. Then Ryun replies that he overheard Sans ordering his servants to come back in 1 week. Since our protagonist knows the truth, Sans tries to deny it, saying they'll be here any minute, but our hero knows he's lying, because if his goons were really showing up, any second Sans would have tried to make Ryun stay so they could kill him instead of spilling the beans like this. Even though Sans tries to convince our boy to believe him, Ryun walks away already knowing the truth and says he'll be back tomorrow. Now he gets ready for the arrival of the Parton family, who are coming in 1 week. After 7 days, the subordinates are in front of the place where Sans and Ryun are. The leader asks if anyone contacted Sans during this time, and one of them replies that, while they haven't contacted the young master, they've been watching all the entrances all week. The leader then goes into the building because the boss ordered them to bring back that brat immediately. Even though the others try to follow him, he tells them to stay back. Going down the stairs, the man notices something is off, but when he steps on the magic circle, he's immediately attacked by it. To defend himself, he puts up a barrier, but now he's sure something has happened to the young master. Noticing the various magic circle traps scattered around the area, he wonders who set them up. He creates a double barrier to get to Sans quickly and identify who was responsible for all this. When he gets to the room where Sans is trapped, he finds him chained up with blood from his wounds covering the floor, breaking the chains. The man demands the name of the person responsible, but Sans is too weak to speak. On the other side, our hero is also there, sitting in a corner, tied up with ropes. Even though Sans asks for a healing potion, the man insists that escaping is the priority since he still doesn't know who's behind all this, and there are a ton of traps in the area. The man is puzzled by the fact that the person responsible for Sans' condition didn't take. Ryun with them, which means there must be another reason. Just then, Sans finally manages to speak, saying that Ryun Sermon was the one who did this to him. Meanwhile, our protagonist stays in the corner, pretending to be unconscious, as the man gets ready to use magic on our hero. The real Ryun appears from behind, revealing he used illusion magic as bait, and immediately Ryun attacks the man, challenging him to a duel. The battle kicks off between them, and they both trade blows. After a while, the man from the Parton family lands a powerful punch on our boy, causing blood to gush from his mouth as he hits the floor. Now, as our boy lies on the ground, the man claims that even though he can't kill him, he can torture him, just like he did with Sans. Unexpectedly, Sans grabs a dagger and shoves it into the man's neck. In reality, it was Ryan who entered Sans' body using the soul transfer technique. On top of that, whoever performs the soul transfer can also control their own body. Our hero calls this his real trump card. After that, the man dies. Then our hero grabs a healing potion and pours it on himself. Next, he celebrates the fact that he killed the high-level archmage from the Parton family. Then the system notifies our boy that his level has increased to 15 because he completed the mission. He's still trying to figure out how his level went up, but for now, Ryan knows he needs to take care of something else first. Next, he drags the body of the archmage to a separate room and lays him on a wooden bed, clearly planning to do something with it. A circuit remains connected to a person's soul, which means he can still use his mana while inside Sans' body. Therefore, by removing the mana, our protagonist is lowering his level to meet the requirements for the secret shadow assassin job. He finally manages to pull off his plan, but with the remaining levels, he has 2 more attempts available. Out of the 2 attempts, our hero also succeeds on the second one, although the plan was to go only this far after defeating the archmage. Ryan decides to go for a 3rd advancement to get the secret class known as Ghost. This is a class, high-level class that helped Ideon become the strongest, and our hero is confident he can get it too. However, the requirement for this class is soul size, but Ryun is willing to take that risk. Without wasting any time, he starts the 3rd advancement. After a tough struggle and offering his own soul, he finally succeeds. And just as the system is about to inform him about his 3rd advancement, our protagonist gets extremely anxious. Luckily, he succeeds here too, and becomes the wielder of the Ghost Tier Ghost class. The Ghost Tier class is something our hero has never seen before, but he assumes it must be similar to the regular Ghost class. Now that Ryun has succeeded with this plan, he turns his focus back to the original goal. Killing the archmage was also part of the plan, since his own strength would increase during the ghost job. Next, our protagonist activates Elite Creation, a process that normally requires a level 70 Necromancer, but can also be used by a 7th Circle Mage. The attempt to create a Lich fails, so the system activates a special undead creation. After a short while, a humanoid creature appears in front of Ryun. After the undead is created, the system asks our boy what he wants to name it. The creation produces a sudden explosion that puts the subordinates on high alert. After some time, our hero still in Sans' body leaves the building, with Ryun's body slung over his shoulder. As he leaves, he explains that the Archmage was behind all this. Although he trapped the Archmage with an artifact, he tells everyone to fall back. Hurry before the connection breaks. Meanwhile, he plans to get Rum back to his family. Mounting his horse, he orders the others to contain the Archmage until he can send for help, promising a reward if they pull it off. As our protagonist rides off on his horse, this becomes the last time they ever see the young master. Back at the Parton family estate, the servants report the situation to Furus, the family's 7th Circle Mage. Parton. When a servant mentions the Archmage hasn't been found, Furus asks if anyone else knows anything. As soon as the man confirms, he's the only one. Furus orders his execution. The reason is, even though they're worried about Sancha's disappearance, if word gets out about the Parton family's involvement in kidnapping the Sermon family's kid, the consequences will be dire. Just then, a commotion is heard outside. Someone from the Sermon family has shown up and is killing their servants. Furus yells at him to get lost, but the man insists he's not leaving until he finds out what happened to young Master Ryan. The recent explosion at the building, Ryun's disappearance for 1 week, and the Parton family's camp all point to their involvement in the young master's kidnapping, trying to throw off suspicion. Fierce plays dumb and says his own young master Sanch is also missing, suggesting they look for both of them together. The visitor isn't buying it and is told to shut up. Bruno, who is also there, silently prays for the situation to stay calm. Senan, a woman out front, orders silence and calls him a traitor. But since Ryun spoke up for him, he'll be spared. Just then, Truno mentions that Ryan was supposed to leave a trail that only the Sermon family could find. Acting on this, Senan starts searching, and after a few checks, she finally finds the clue. Sparten's body hanging from a tree with a note saying, "I'm a kidnapper. Please punish me." However, Seinon finds a letter and starts reading it. In this letter, Rayon explains that his original plan was to stay in Sanch's body and destroy the Parton family from the inside, but the risk of being found out was way too high. Besides, if he returned as Ryun, a war would break out between the families, and the Sermon family wasn't ready for that. So he chose to disappear for now. Seinon burns the letter and tells Truno to go back home. Meanwhile, a kid named Ryun is running through a city when a man calls him over to the guild saying the leader is looking for him. The kid is actually our hero. Later, Lady Seinon finds out that Ryun is in fact the Dragon of Drea. 3 months later in Penton, the capital of the Painstroy Kingdom, rumors are flying about the clash between House Parton and House Sermon. The cause of the whole mess was a traitor from House Parton who kidnapped the heir of the Sermon bloodline. Afterward, House Sermon had to take the compensation money from House Parton. Still, they couldn't find the culprit or the kidnapped son, which made everyone doubt the Sermon family's story. Once a legendary family, they were now a total wreck. At the Martim Assassins Guild, Saphira, the manager of the Penton branch, is watching the situation. She notices that the Sermon family seemed to need the cash more than they wanted to look for their missing heir. Danis mentions the execution of the manager, Truno, while taking a swig of beer. Saphira explains that he was working with the traitor, so Alejandro carried out the beheading right away. Saphira feels a bit uneasy. Alejandro is a sword master, a rarity on the Drea continent, and yet he handles executions personally. He enters, greets his uncle Dunas, and walks up to Saphira in her office. She hands him a letter of recommendation to register him officially as a guild member. Even though he still has a test to pass, she slides the letter his way, saying the test would be pointless for a guy like him. After all, he reached the final stage in just 2 months, which is insane. She praises his insane talent at such a young age, something nobody's seen in centuries. He tries to play it cool and be humble, but she sees right through his act, though it's still better than when he first showed up. 2 months earlier, Ryun had suddenly shown up at their relatively unknown guild and slammed a huge pile of cash on the table for an assassination request. Since the guild takes any gig as long as the pay is good enough, she treated him like a VIP client. As soon as she saw the amount, she insists it wasn't just about the money. She had a gut feeling that she wouldn't find another client like him. Disguised as a beggar, but carrying a fortune, Ryun asked for the assassination target to be himself. Curiosity was the only sensible reaction. After receiving the letter, he leaves wanting to read it alone. Meanwhile, a masked man named Kay arrives and asks if she accepted Ryun into the guild simply because of her intuition. Saphira explains that Ryun completed all his training in 1 month, something that normally takes 5 to 10 years. She asks if he managed to investigate Ryun's past. Kay reports that Ryun was raised by an unidentified master who later disappeared, and that Ryun joined the guild to find information about this master. Due to Ryun's unusual request, he was thoroughly vetted before being admitted into the guild. Kay also visited the place where Ryun supposedly lived with his master and confirmed that the location showed real signs of long-term habitation. What worries Saphira is the possibility that Ryun is actually Ryun, Sermon, the missing young master of the Sermon family, who showed up at their guild at almost the same time he disappeared. Kay reassures her, saying the possibility is almost zero. Ryun was known for having no mana, no talent for swordsmanship, and terrible stamina, making it almost impossible for the two to be the same person. He tries to continue his report, but Saphira cuts him off. He can't act like a detective forever. Instead, she tasks him with looking for information about Ryun's mysterious master. Meanwhile, Ryun overhears the entire conversation from his room using a Necromancer skill. He realizes that Saphira has a sharp intuition. He opens his status window and notices that the level consumed during the class change has returned. Investing in body domination was definitely worth it. Not only did it alter his appearance, it also prevents mana detection. It has reached a point where he can even fool the shape detection skill of a second-class assassin. That day, an undead girl named Kornak appears. She possesses a remarkable set of skills, and Ryun realizes she is becoming an undead. He is surprised by her ghostly abilities, which were not mentioned in the skill description. When he checks the circuit, a hidden quest appears that requires the discovery of secret conditions to be completed. The completion notification appeared after defeating Arte. The combination of Hand of Death, Ghost, a skill circuit, and the quest resulted in the creation of Kornak. At the moment, she is just a mana-devouring monster, practically a parasite to him, but he believes that one day she will become useful. To him, growth means looking to the future, not the present. Lost in thought, he is interrupted by Doom. Ryun explains that he was just thinking about becoming a full-fledged member of the guild after the test, and one day becoming the branch manager. Dunn assures him that at the rate he is growing, that is entirely possible. He then mentions the three final candidates, of whom only one will be able to pass the test. Passing will make them official members of the guild and fifth-class assassins. Palaran and Ryun stand before him as he announces the start of the test. Dunn asks for the target's information. Ryan reveals details about Alok, a 47-year-old merchant who runs a shop and always travels with three mercenaries as guards. Two of the mercenaries are bronze-level warriors, and one is a silver-level mage. According to a rumor, he recently took a young woman as a concubine and visits her every night. During this time, the mercenaries give him privacy. Dunn is impressed with the investigation done on the target. Furthermore, Rian also managed to find a method to avoid the guards. The only thing that worries Dunn is the guarantee that the target will actually go to the concubine's room. Rion hadn't considered that, and Dunn explains that this is exactly why Martong always gathers detailed information. He then turns to Rion, asking for the information he obtained. Rion questions if he really needs to reveal it, surprising them. Two other competitors. Even if they team up to finish the mission, they won't become official guild members together. Only one person is going to pass this test. That's why he doesn't want to share any info. The two competitors get pissed, realizing they shot their mouths off too soon. In the end of the day, they're just colleagues. Ryan denies even being colleagues, saying they didn't learn that crap during training. Downs approves of Ryan's answer, seeing it as the correct mindset, and tells them to focus on the test. Ditching, or using others when you have to, is just part of being an assassin. He asks if the other two have anything to say, and they both say no at the same time. Downs announces the start of the assassination test, and everyone bolts. He remembers the time when Ryan himself was the one who had to be assassinated. The deadline was 3 days, and the location was Penton. The special condition was that they had to register him as a special level trainee at the Martong Penton branch. The assassins laughed, thinking they could find Ryan in 10 minutes. Turns out they totally failed. They couldn't find him for the entire 3 days. They ended up indirectly praising Ryun's tricks and traps. After the 3 days, Ryan received training from Saphira, who kept her promise. Back in the present, Ryan thinks about how becoming a pro assassin is no joke. The target for this test was set to max difficulty, and he might be on the verge of something historic. Meanwhile, Pallas manages to get around the alarm magic and mechanical traps, dodging the mercenaries. However, he didn't expect to run into more mercs. Run manages to hide and thanks Pallas, since things worked out for her because of what he did. The target had already been through tons of assassination attempts, so the place he picked to hide was his wife's bedroom. The wife is pissed at him for having a side piece and for bringing assassins to their door. He insists it wasn't him who brought the assassins, and that the room is totally decked out with security devices. Ryan overhears their conversation from the roof and decides to take out the 5 regular soldiers around her, so she can try a frontal attack. Meanwhile, Alok's wife threatens him with a knife. She feels betrayed by his affairs and for him stealing the family's money. He tries to explain that the company funds were running low, but she knows he used the cash to buy a gift for his side piece. Without hesitating, she stabs him right in the heart and breaks down crying, realizing what she's done. Run watches the target die by his wife's hand and is confused, not knowing if her mission was a success or a failure. Suddenly, she thinks of Ryun and realizes she hasn't seen him around. She goes back to report her failure, stating the target was killed by his wife, not her. She's shocked to see Ryan is already back, wondering if he even went to the mansion at all. Pallas also gets back safely. He escaped when the mercenaries started fighting each other. Downs announces that the mission wasn't a failure because Ryan succeeded. The other two competitors are stunned, as Downs explains that Ryun controlled the wife and used her to kill the husband with his ability. Then he asks for an explanation, and Ryan explains, looking annoyed. He says that the solution was right there between the target and his main wife, using the target's personal drama. This makes the other competitors think that maybe the branch manager had given him special intel on the target. But Ryan says that gathering info on the guy who's a pretty famous merchant wasn't a hard task. And according to Ryan's intel, Alok was a liquor distributor and had a new mistress. While the other two competitors were busy gathering info, Ryan, having already finished his investigation, started to act on the plan he had prepared in advance. Pallas wonders how he managed to finish the investigation before even knowing who the target was. Ryan reveals that the target wasn't the only person he investigated. Everyone in the city with bad rumors or an assassination risk had already been investigated by him beforehand. He had started to get close to the city merchants who knew the rumors, and since he had finished his training in 2 months, he was able to prepare for the assassination of every potential target. He prepared everything in advance, no matter who the target turned out to be. It was like studying the whole textbook for a pop quiz. So while investigating, he found out that someone held a deep grudge against Locke, his main wife Kelly. He got in touch with her, as she was constantly getting abused by her husband, and he offered her a solution: secretly hire the Assassins Guild. While the target kept ignoring his wife and bringing home lovers, he also kept running his businesses, using her family's money. Kelly hated him enough to kill him, but she didn't actually want him dead. So he told her that if she hired more mercenaries and beefed up security, her husband would just get scared and lay low. Then at the last minute, when he ran to his wife's room, Ryun had already suggested that she frame the assassination as a plot by her husband's mistress, and that he would then come to his senses and return to her. Kelly was drunk and accepted the plan. And he admits everything would have gone according to plan if he had just stopped there. But right before the assassination plan was carried out, he also fed her some more info. Her husband had blown all the money he took from her family, claiming it was for business. Basically, the test was premeditated, and he cleverly twisted it to his advantage. Dawn's is still confused about how a civilian woman stabbed her husband to death. Ryan explains that the alcohol she was given was laced with a potion he brewed using alchemy, since it would be dangerous if there were any casualties. So he slipped some drugs into the water that the mercenaries also drank, and the potion ended up kicking in at just the right moment. The drug had the effect of temporarily clouding their judgment and making them irritable. Paula realizes that the brawl between the mercenaries was caused by the drug he created. In other words, everything went just as planned, and the info he leaked combined with the effects of the drug made Kelly so furious that she killed him. Then Dunn congratulates him on passing the test. Ryan also tells Dunn that he's about to get the commission and an extra fee from Kelly, since she suddenly became a killer. But it's still a fact that assassins infiltrated the place. Only they know that Kelly was the one who killed him, not an assassin, and that she'd pay anything to cover up the crime she just committed. Everyone is stunned, considering how high his level must be since his work is really precise and respectable. Dunn sends the two competitors back, but stops Ryun. He confronts him about what he did, saying the wife now has to live with the guilt of killing her husband for the rest of her life. And that's something that Ron never considered. Their guild trains assassins, not monsters. Ryan calmly explains that Kelly was far from an ordinary woman, pointing out that Kelly used to kill all of her husband's mistresses. Even Locke himself ruined tons of lives with his drugs, loan sharking, and underground casinos. Kelly managed to hide all her murders, thanks to her family's power, and her husband was sick of her, but he didn't stop getting more mistresses, even though he knew they would all end up dead. The mistresses' families are still looking for them, but Kelly's power easily covers up her crimes. That kind of detail doesn't usually come up during an investigation, and this was, after all, an assassination request for a test case. And even if she didn't want her husband dead, the guild that took the request would only get paid in full if the target died. So Ryun questions whether the client's feelings or circumstances even matter on an assassination job, since everything they do is for money. He also says that Kelly never said she didn't want to kill her husband with her own hands. Instead, she tried to use the assassination request to her advantage, and the request was completed on her terms. Even if the consequence is her living the rest of her life with the guilt of killing her husband, that's none of their business. Dennis wonders if a conscience is unnecessary for assassins. And Ryan says that if they want to hold on to their humanity, they should get more powerful and change things at the root. No matter how much they search for a conscience, as long as they're accepting assassination jobs, nothing can be changed. And with that, he leaves. Spire congratulates our boy for passing the test and announces that he is now an official member of the guild and a 5th level assassin. As soon as she makes the announcement that his level increases, his system notifies him that he's earned the respect of Phillips and Paula and met Danis's expectations. And Saphira informs him that he can now take on official guild requests and also apply for a promotion if he meets the conditions. She didn't expect him to apply immediately, but he cuts her off and starts reciting all the conditions for the promotion. Then without hesitation, he asks how much the allocation request paid out. And Saphira feels a little pressured. She ends up telling him that the initial payment was 10, the completion payment was 10, and that they also received 10 gold from Kelly for covering up the assassination. He says that even though it was just a test, he was the one who completed the request and earned the additional amount. And since the condition for promotion is 30 per request, he's met the requirement. He immediately gets the option to apply for promotion to 4th rank assassin. She warns him to be careful with his arrogance and not to underestimate them, since they also have their own laws and policies as an organization. Among assassins, you're only considered really good, starting from the 4th rank, but most of all, she's irritated by this attitude of his, since it shows disrespect to the other assassins. She tries to ignore it, but he states out loud that he will not withdraw the promotion request. She starts yelling at him, but Denise, who supervised the test, states that Ryun is qualified to take the promotion test for the 4th level, because it wasn't out of disrespect for others. It was something important that he demonstrated in the test. Pure physical skill. He didn't rely on elaborate plans, but on his assassination abilities, using his body's capabilities as an assassin, and he overcame the assassination attempt with brilliant strategies. And not only that, but they can also take the opportunity to assess Ryun's skill level, or they can teach him a lesson he'll never forget. Saphira remembers the game of tag, which consisted mainly of trapping techniques. She finally agrees to the promotion test and warns him that assassins must risk their lives for this test, and he accepts the challenge. Later that night, the three of them sit with Danis, who informs them that the test can only be held in 1 or 2 months. Until then, he could train him, but Ryun politely refuses the offer, as he wants to rest until then. He informs them that he'll be away from the guild for a while, and that as soon as he becomes an official member, he can leave the branch's territory. He assures them he will return before the test, and will stop by the Martin branch to check for news about the test. Then they continue drinking together, until they've had their... Since the target's a branch leader, he figures there won't be time for even a quick nap, so he's got to get a move on. He reaches the Black Zone, the land of the dead. Meanwhile, some noble dude rolls out with his knights and spots our boy, immediately demanding to know who he is. Ryun gets up, claiming his leg is busted and he can't walk anymore. He begs the noble to take him to the village or he'll just die there. The noble acts all high and mighty, saying he would have just offed him if he wasn't in such a rush. But Ryun can totally tell the guy isn't in a hurry at all. Ryun pleads to get inside the carriage, and the noble named Kenil gets orders from inside the carriage to put the kid in there. Kenil refuses and instead puts him on the horse with him. During the ride, Kenil questions him, and our boy introduces himself. The noble says he's only alive thanks to the young lady in the carriage, and that he's unlucky to have met her. But Ryun knows this wasn't luck. It was all planned. The young lady is Rose, a blood relative of the Rose family, who sported the crest of the Rose. Just for this, he eliminated all dangers before he left, and found out that the Rose family's procession would take the same path as him. Yeah, he'd been living quietly in the outer territories of finest Troy, but the Rose family suddenly collapsed, and she was forced into exile. He knows that only minor nobles from the border region remained, so the escorts aren't even real knights. They're just private soldiers of the family who were given the title of knight. The whole story behind the fall of the Rose family is tied to the Sermon family from what he's dug up. One of the knights wonders why the Sermon family is even involved in this mess. Another knight says the Shady family offed the head of the Rose family to bury the evidence of their dirty dealings. When Ryan hears this, he's totally floored. After a bit, they take a quick break. What Ryan pieced together today was the fall of the Rose family, which all started with the recent beef between the Sermon and Sparten families. The kingdom of Daring, where Sermon is from, and the kingdom of Finnish Troy, where Sparten hangs their hat. The oldest son of the Rose family was affiliated with a rival nation and became a knight for the Sermon family, which is how they got connected. While on duty in the Black Zone, he got taken out by a monster, and the Sermon family compensated the Rose family with a massive payout. Another family, a rival to the Rose family that held a grudge against them, started backing the Sermon family's moves and used the beef as an opportunity. And that led to the hit on the head of the Rose family. The word on the street was that the Rose family had been doing Sermon's dirty work on the down low, and that Sermon wanted to bury the evidence, which is why they took out the boss. But the Rose family claimed they were actually offed by Sparten. It didn't even matter though, since Sparten was gaining major clout at the time. Now, after losing their leader and watching their power go down the drain, the Rose family is being exiled to Darren. The only ones who know the real story are those from the Rose family who didn't bail on Lady Rose. While Lady Rose is asleep in her tent, the other knights are hanging around outside, with some on watch and others sitting around the campfire listening to Kenil go on about how the Sparten and Annie families are actually the real suspects. While the Sermon family was always trying to help, the guards are all cheering. Meanwhile, Ryan is just quietly eating his soup next to them. One of the guards glances at him, wondering if the kid is bored by all this political talk. But instead, Ryan is silently concerned, wondering if it's really smart to be blabbing so openly about this stuff in front of some random kid, especially in the middle of an exile mission. The guards just shrug it off and keep talking, pointing out that Lady Rose is the one suffering the most here. She, Kenil, and the younger knights are too green, so they haven't realized how serious the situation is, especially when it comes to the Annie family. Ryan knows exactly what that means. The head of the Anne family is a total womanizer who's had several hit requests put on him at the guild. Requests that Ryan personally turned down because the risk-to-reward ratio sucked. Despite his scummy lifestyle, the dude is extremely careful about his own safety. And if a guy that paranoid is targeting Lady Rose, then camping out in the open like this is just insane. Just then, Ryan catches some movement in the dark, a quick jump behind them in the trees. Realizing they're already being tailed, he decides not to risk tipping anyone off by attacking. Instead, he slips into the shadows and starts setting up traps to slow down whoever is tracking them. When he gets back to the camp, the guards give him a confused look, wondering why he's suddenly covered in dirt. They have no clue that he's already set up enough traps to slow down their pursuer for a while. With that handled and armed with the intel he got from the Rose family earlier, he quietly heads back to his tent, planning to get some rest so he can leave at dawn. The next morning, they hit the road again and finally reach their destination, the village of Dom. Cannell looks at Ryan and wonders out loud what a kid like him is planning to do in a village so close to the Black Zone. Ryan casually lies, saying he's a merchant who trades in monster materials, and with that, he gets ready to say his goodbyes. But before he can leave, the knight stops him and hands over a healing potion, supposedly from Lady Rose. Ryan is caught off guard, but takes it, and the caravan takes off, leaving him alone with the potion. He chugs it down immediately, and just then, a group of knights thunders past him. Ryan recognizes them instantly as the pursuit party, mercenaries, swordsmen, mages, and leading the pack, is Garuda, Anne, the second son of the Anne family. All they just run past without even a glance his way. Still, Ron is genuinely surprised they managed to catch up so fast despite all the traps he set up. Then something else catches his eye. The potion vial looks expensive up close, and it naturally makes him wonder what Lady Rose was thinking. Giving him something like this when she's practically living like a fugitive, and her family has almost no chance of winning. And he knows that Garuda will get her eventually. It shouldn't be his problem, or at least it's supposed to be. However, now that he's taken the expensive potion, he can't shake the feeling that he owes them something in return. So with a quiet sigh, he opens his magic circles and summons. With all his power, he declares his first task. As the Rose family quietly moves forward, Cannell suddenly hears something and goes on high alert. He orders everyone to pick up the pace and makes a gesture for the lady to stay back. The others are a bit surprised by the sudden orders, but they obey when Cannell makes it clear that mana users are chasing them. With the border getting closer, he comes up with a plan B. If the pursuers catch up, the two on the front line must grab the lady and get her to safety as fast as possible. Taking command, Cannell turns around and rides towards the pursuers, ready to buy some time, even though he knows the Anne family knights are way out of his league. Meanwhile, the group of Anne family knights reaches the mountain pass, surprised to see only one knight in their way. At the same time, Cannell stops his horse before them and warns them to go away, but he's shocked when Garuda removes his hood, revealing who he's trying to stop. Although his group members think it's reckless to reveal his identity, Garuda doesn't care. His mission is to kill everyone except Saint-Tin. Without hesitation, he orders his men to bring the girl back before they cross the border. As the mercenaries charge forward, Cannell tries to stop them, but he's hit by a blast from a mage and falls to the ground. Badly injured Cannell struggles to get back up, but to his amazement, Garuda also brought his own knight. Even more surprising, it's Siso, the former captain of the Rose Knights who Garuda lured with money. Wasting no time, Siso fights Cannell, and in just a few strikes, manages to knock the sword from his hand. Relentlessly, he tries to persuade Cannell to abandon the Rose family and serve a new master, but Cannell refuses, even if it means death. Hearing this, Garuda gives the signal to finish him off. Just as Siso is about to deliver the final blow, something hits him from behind. It turns out to be a green flame from Ron, who's come to his aid. Without hesitation, he unleashes multiple strikes that kill Siso instantly, though Garuda is protected by his mage just in time. Meanwhile, near the border, the Rose family's group is thrown into chaos with the carriage completely destroyed. Only two knights are left to defend Lady Rose with all their might, while the two mercenaries mock them for being so easily overpowered. As the situation gets more desperate, Lady Rose herself steps out of the carriage, calm yet resolute. She orders her men to lower their weapons. Then, with a knife to her own throat, she demands the Anne mercenaries take her if they want. But she warns them to spare her men, or she'll take her own life, which clearly goes against their employer's intentions. However, to her astonishment, the mercenary scoffs, saying that until she's reached Darren, she's neither a noble nor has any value. The next instant, one of the mercenaries appears behind her and grabs her knife, ready to show her what it means to challenge a mana user. Seeing this, the Rose family knight tries to fight back, but before he can act, Rayon appears in a flash and lands a powerful kick right in the mercenary's face. The remaining mercenary, initially shocked by Rayon's sudden entrance, is even more stunned when Rayon reveals he's a Martin assassin who came prepared with an initial payment of soup and a potion. Realizing she has an advantage, Lady Rose quickly puts two and two together and offers 30 gold pieces to deal with everyone. However, for Rayon, that's way too little, as he's only willing to accept the 30 gold pieces for the first mercenary, But they're still the second son of House Anne, the commander, a knight and a mage. Getting the picture. Lady Rose knows that if she doesn't act fast and hire him, her exile mission will be a total bust and House Rose could crumble. Totally freaking out. She agrees to give Ryan whatever he asks for, and he's cool with it. Yo, you've watched this far and still haven't subscribed to the channel. Seriously, dude, you're slipping, man. Come on, hit that subscribe button and make your boy happy. Okay. Huh, huh, huh. Got it. With that, he leaps into the air in a flash and goes after the mercenary who's hesitating, wondering if Ryan, now that he's revealed who he is actually an assassin. Ryan preps his attack and with a single blow takes down the first merc, proving he doesn't mess around. So confident he'd even reveal his true identity. And just like that, Ryan's first score in Martin begins with the price being everything. While Ryan is basking in his glory, the downed merc gets back up laughing like a maniac and yelling, "They won't go down that easy." Before Ryan can even turn around the merc, he dropped first, takes a swing with his sword, but Ryan dodges it like it's nothing, forcing the guy to realize he can't let his guard down against an assassin from Martin. Reacting instantly, both mercs launch a synchronized attack, switching places with their swords to hit Ryan at the same time. In response, Ryan activates his body control and acceleration, appearing all around them in the blink of an eye. This totally messes with the pair who start thinking it's illusions since they can't land a single hit. For now, they decide to wait for the perfect moment to counter together, but little do they know it's already too late. Ryan pops up in front of the guys, revealing he'd already cast physical debuffs and other curses on them. Before they can even react as they start to get weaker, Ryan shreds them, dropping them in a brutal bloodbath. As the sun rises, everyone regroups, tending to the fallen and fixing the carriage. Right around then, Kenil shows up, and as soon as he gets there, his first thought is about everyone's safety. Seeing him, Lady Rose is relieved and starts crying, while Ryan silently knows this is all his doing. The curious guards wonder if Kenil took down all the chasers by himself, but the knight reveals he got help from some mage who just popped up out of nowhere. With that help, they manage to capture the Garuda and defeat the traitor knight. While they're talking about the mage, Kornko herself shows up, answering Ryan's magic circle signal. She frees the wounded and defeated Garuda from the spell. When Kenil sees Ryan, he recognizes him as the kid who helped out earlier. But to his shock, Lady Rose reveals he's an assassin from Martin. Thinking back on the fight, Kenil realizes his presence might explain how the mage was able to wreck the enemies so easily during the fight. Hearing he's from Martin, Garuda quickly tries to save his own skin, offering triple the price to be set free, knowing that for an assassin, the cash matters more than the client. However, to everyone's surprise, Ryan gets pissed and uses his spell to slice the Garuda in two for running his mouth. With that, he also makes it crystal clear to Lady Rose what happens to people who try to bail on their payment. Terrified, the lady agrees. Ryan then brings up the reward, explaining he doesn't want it right away since he gets their current situation with the Rose family. Still, he insists on a verbal contract for a deal, one that's got to stay on the down low. Once the agreement is made, he suggests they keep moving toward their destination, assuring them the guild will handle the bodies after they're gone. With that, Ryan starts to take off. But Kenil, impressed by how thoughtfully he handled the whole thing, calls out to him. Ryan just blinks in response, snaps his fingers, and vanishes right before their eyes. This shocks the guards. But what really gets Kenil is that even though the kid calls himself an assassin, the thing he summoned was no ordinary undead. It spoke clearly in a human tongue. Plus, it defeated Ciso and the mage almost simultaneously. Seeing this, Kenil realizes that if someone can command such a powerful undead, there's a chance Ryan could be a disciple of the most legendary necromancer Vita. Yeah,